Hey, Rain. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ah, good. That wasn't me. Hey, Kairos! We're starting the panel in a few minutes. Everyone?
Yep, ready to go.
Okay then, we'll be starting in a few seconds. Hello and welcome to the Cobalt panel. I am Dynaman21779, the creator and lead developer for the game. Why don't we all just introduce ourselves and what we do for the game, which will probably be easier than me doing what I did last time, where I butchered a few job descriptions.
Alright, so why don't you start us off, Dinah?
Didn't I already introduce myself?
Well, what do you do, mainly? What are your jobs?
Well, I am one of the writers for the game. I primarily handle the... Well, if Ark is the story writer, I'd be the creative writer, the one who's doing the side stuff, the character intros, the routes, the additional content, if you know what I mean. I'm also the game's primary coder and also the one who pays for most of everything. Everything that doesn't come from the Patreon.
Alright. Hello, my name is Rainshadow. One of the concept artists for Cobalt, and also a creative consultant for a couple characters.
One of those being Amanita Peach. Amanita?
Yep.
Amanita? How do you pronounce it?
Yes. Yes, Amanita.
Ah. Karis, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm one of the hi, I'm Kairos. I'm one of the devs. I guess my job it's been listing over time, but I'm mainly in charge of an OC called Kairos Lowen. That'll eventually show up, when the time is right. But yeah, other than that, I don't really I don't really do much anymore. So
Don't you also have an OC in Magi?
oh yeah. Sorry. It's been brain fart. Yep, I do as well. Yes. So yeah, I'm in charge. I'm in charge of those two.
And I don't know
Yeah.
if audio is working, but we've also got D-Man, who's the creator of the Ruby Heroes fanfiction and the creator of one of our other OCs, Horatio Sopla. And his audio isn't on, so we are going to start the panel. Okay, first I want to talk about what's been going on so far since the last panel. And I kind of fell into a bad place mentally. It kind of delayed the game's aim for several months, but I'm back now and I'm hopefully ready to start making Cobalt again. We recently released the 0.2 recode last month, and we're about to release the 0.3 recode, which you'll be happy to know will be announcing a release date in this panel. Second thing that's been going on is that, due to personal reasons, our last sprite and CG artist, Kilium, had to step down. Because of that, we had to ask Amico if he was kind enough to let us continue using him as a sprite artist, and thankfully he's agreed, and you'll be seeing some of the work both artists have been doing later on in the panel. Moving on. I'm going to spend a minute talking about a specific thing from Ruby Volume 8, which revealed Cinder's backstory for the first time. Only took us about 8 volumes to get there. But, as it turns out, Cinder actually grew up in an orphanage before being adopted by a really cruel Atletian family. spoiler warning. Obviously, this kind of screws with what we were previously planning to do with Blaze, so we had to have Blaze adopted by a second, much more loving family. Thank goodness for that. So, we've also had to change her last name from Blaze Fall to Blaze Action. Pronounced like Ashen comes from the Brothers Grit inversion of Cinderella called Action Puto, which is a really nice link, I feel like, between Blaze and Cinder, has both got Cinderella theme aspects in them. I suck at explaining. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next section of the panel, but this one's not going to be from me. I've got here a video from our story writer, ArcAlpha12, which I'm going to now play for you.
Hello everyone, this is ArcAlpha12, and today I am here to discuss Cobalt. I don't know what Dino has said already. For those who are watching this over on my YouTube channel, this is actually going to be featured in a Twitch stream, but I can't join the Twitch stream because it's happening on a day that I have to work. So I'm recording this message, and it'll be over on the Twitch stream, maybe in an edited form. I don't know what Dino plans on doing, but this will also serve as a backup copy for those over here on YouTube who can't make it to this Twitch stream. So I'm not going to talk about everything when it comes to Cobalt. There's too much to discuss, but I do want to touch on a couple of key aspects. Like I said, in the Twitch stream, Dino might be covering that, but for those who aren't watching the Twitch stream, I just want to give a little brief rundown of what's happened in the last couple of months, as well as a little bit of a teaser for what's in production already. First of all, the last time we did a Twitch stream for Cobalt was, I believe, back in October, and it featured several other visual novel projects that were going on at that time. Right now, as far as I'm aware, only one of them is continuing. The other two are on hold or have gotten canceled. I don't know for sure. But when it comes to Cobalt specifically, Cobalt is getting back on track. I know that there was a bit of a lull in content for almost a year because of drama. It kind of derailed Cobalt's motivation for a little bit, but we are back on track. We've managed to produce a 0.2 recode update, and 0.3 is, if it's not finished by now, it's very, very close to being done, which means that you guys will be able to enjoy even more Cobalt content very soon. Hopefully, as the weeks and months progress, these recodes getting up to 0.6, which was the last actual full-on produced story content for Cobalt. Once we get through 0.6, everything is going to be brand new, and we're going back and revamping a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the events. And I still have to work on the writing of the combat system, because we're going to do a QTE type combat system that's going to be very heavy in story. And we're doing that because of the fact that visual novels don't lend themselves very well to combat systems unless you've got animated sprites going around punching each other, or you've got like a 3D model that will take the place of the sprite during the combat system, and we don't have any of that. So we're not going to go the route of JPDE, which is a boring slog of a combat system that just is not fun to play, it's not fun to watch, and it just is not fun in general. And we're hopefully going to be able to use what a visual novel is supposed to do, which is to tell a story, to flesh out the combat that you see in Ruby. It ultimately will just come down to when I have time to do it. Hopefully by the time 0.4 releases, I will have worked on at least the 0.1 combat system fight, so that by 0.5, hopefully 0.1's, the combat that was in 0.1, I believe, which is, I want to say, a spar against Blaze? Or a spar against Ren, I don't remember. But hopefully that fight will be coded and in the game, and as we continue producing the game, we'll just slowly release the combat so that it can tell the story that it needs to tell. It's a very big endeavor, so it's taking a long time, and I am extremely busy. I've been working 45 to 50 hours a week, and in addition to that, I also have my YouTube channel and a fan fiction to write, so it's very difficult to find time and motivation to be able to sit down and work on this, but with luck, hopefully we'll be able to get it done. Now on to the fun stuff. Since the last panel, which was back in October, we lost our previous sprite artist, which was Kilium. He had to step away from the project due to personal reasons. But we did manage to get Amako back on board, who was the person who produced most of the sprites in the game, because most of the sprites are from JPDE, and we are slowly phasing those out with our own sprites and our own unique things. So Amako has allowed us to come back as clients, and we are doing our absolute best to slowly but surely update and replace all the JPDE sprites so that the visual novel looks more like our own stuff, rather than what just borrowing assets from JPDE. And we're excited to see it. We've got multiple characters already in production. We've got multiple characters that have already been replaced, and we've got a large number of characters that still need to be fixed. So just keep an eye out for that, because I have a very good feeling about how the production is going to go. Speaking of sprites, two of the sprites that we are actually two of the characters from JPDE that I have been talking about for a while that will be in Cobalt were Jack and Evelyn. Ultimately, we redesigned Jack. As you can see on the screen around me, you'll see the original Jack sprite from JPDE and Jack's new redesign. Jack's redesign shouldn't be new to a lot of people, because I did show off both the concept art that I worked with Rainshadow to get approval from Jack's owner, Little Red, as well as her sprite. I believe I showed off their sprite back in February or March in the Cobalt spoilers chat, and her sprite was the Cobalt server icon for a little while. So the sprite has been hanging around for a while. But for those who need a refresher, this is the difference between the two characters of Jack. As you notice, I've decided, since Jack is supposed to be from Vacuo, to go with the more tan skin tone rather than the pale one that JPDE uses, because every character we know of from Vacuo has tan skin. We've got Sun, Indigo. There are several examples where the skin color of the people from Vacuo tend to be darker than elsewhere. So I decided that since Jack's from Vacuo, she should have that same skin tone. It just makes sense from a lore standpoint. When it comes to Evelyn, however, there was a bit of a mishap. We couldn't get the design properly put into place, basically, because as people know, this was the original design for Evelyn in JPDE. And although we wanted to use Evelyn, and we wanted to use her in a unique way, we could never get a design that Little Red truly approved of, because Little Red was like, she's a tailor, but she doesn't really care about her own clothes, so she's got patches everywhere, and because she's colorblind, she can't see what color the patches are, so she thinks they're all the same color, but they're not. And we just couldn't work with that. Like, it just looked really, really bad. On paper, it looked like it would work, but when you actually start putting the colors in, it just didn't look appealing. And Rainshadow and I decided to scrap that thing entirely. And instead, we decided to create a new character. For those who haven't been on the Cobalt spoilers chat, because they didn't want to get spoiled, I'm sorry, but I'm spoiling it for you now. Allow me to introduce you to Evelyn's replacement, Adeline Shade, who is my personal creation based on the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, and specifically the White Rabbit from Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, because I really like the aesthetic choices that Tim Burton used for the White Rabbit specifically, mainly with the elegant coat and just, you know, he looks a little frantic, and I wanted Adeline to not look nearly as frantic, because it would look too much like Evelyn when she's like in psycho mode, when she's using her semblance. So ultimately, I decided to make Adeline a little more classy looking. But as you can see, she's got pure white hair. The gray ear is a bit of a design choice. She's got a coat very similar to the White Rabbit from Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. We're sticking with the Alice theme because, well, frankly, I still wanted to have some kind of connection to Evelyn from Little Red's version, because Evelyn and Jack both had very unique and interesting things going on with their character development and storyline from Little Red's story. Many of those elements didn't get put into JPDE, but I really liked them, so I wanted to honor that. So although we're not using Evelyn, both because of the design and because Evelyn is JPDE's mascot, and if we're trying to distance ourselves from JPDE, we need to come up with a new character to replace her, I decided that Adeline would work probably the best, because I could take a lot of the design and backstory and personality choices that Little Red had for Evelyn and turn them into something unique, so it still honors the character without actually using her. There are a lot of interesting little things I'm going to be doing with Adeline and Jack in JPDE, or not JPDE, Cobalt. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, Jack and Adeline are going to play major parts in the story as side characters with their own side story that will allow Cobalt as a team, as well as Cobalt Blue as a character, to evolve into a stronger leader, a stronger team, and hopefully a well-liked and well-earned place in the RWBY fandom. That's my hope anyway, because I've got big stories, big plans for these characters, and I can't wait to show them to you. I'm not going to tell you exactly when they're going to release, because that part of the story hasn't even been written yet. I know when they're going to be released, and all I can ask is keep playing the game, keep your eyes peeled, because I'm going to be dropping some hints. Some of them are going to be pretty subtle, some of them not so subtle, and when they appear, you'll know. I think that's all I need to talk about here. So thank you for joining me. This was ArcAlpha12, and I will turn it back over to Dino if you're watching the Twitch stream. If you're not, I will see you in the next video.
Okay, thank you, Ark. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, just had to... was watching the video while the stream was going. Anyway.
Alright.
We're now going to be moving on to what we've been making in terms of art. And the first thing we've been doing is we're going to be showing off is the scroll. It's a brand new scroll made by Rabbit VI, who was a GUI artist for another RWBY fan game called Prim, which got cancelled and turned into Threads of Memory, but the creator allowed us to get in contact with the artists and gave us the original assets, which were then modified by Rain. Thank you, Rain. And then we went to commissioning new things for the scroll, like buttons and new menus. As you can see here, there'll be 6 options. You can 6 buttons to choose from: an exit button, an item button, a button which you can show your still yet to be decided on social stats, your relationships, you'll be able to message and call people, and the switch button, which I will cryptically talk about later. This, though, is the call message menu. Anyone you meet in the game will be added to this contact list, and you'll be able to. And hopefully, when all is said and done, you'll be able to do 3 things. You'll be able to call them, video call them, or text them. Now, for those of you wondering what that switch button was, that is Blaze Mode. Cobalt has always had two protagonists, both Cobalt and Blaze, and we haven't really been able to explore much from Blaze's perspective until now, but what we're hoping to do is, with that switch button, you'll be able to switch perspectives of the game, and for root and key story perspectives, key story moments, so you'll be able to do things as both Cobalt and Blaze, which also includes romancing other people. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Amico sprite. It's what Amico's been making for us since we asked him to come back. The strapping young armored figure on the left is Orion Pendragon, made by Catarot. He was actually had a sprite before the recode stuff, but we modified it recently so his armor was less silver and blue to white and gold. He's a literal white knight in shining armor. And on the right, those who recognize her from the early days of Cobalt, is Ray Glasses, the sexy Mantelian. I'm just going to confirm, and for those of you wondering if you can romance either of them, Orem, I believe yes. Ray, it's complicated. And if you do try to pursue her, you'll come up into... You won't be able to romance certain characters at the same time as her, which actually brings me to something I want to talk about, root restrictions. Some characters you will not be able to romance at the same time. Some of these make sense, like you won't be able to romance White and Winter at the same time for, obvious reasons, because they're sisters. But on the flip side of things, for the story reasons, you won't be able to romance characters like the Atletians and Ray at the same time. Like, if you try to romance Ray and Mina together, you have to choose which one of them you definitely want to romance, and the other one will be unromanced. If you know what I mean. Does that make sense? Bleh.
So it's like a light side, dark side sort of thing. You gotta choose if you want to walk light side or dark side.
Yeah, kind of. Okay, second thing. Amico is currently working on the sprite of possibly the coolest character in Beacon. A student so relentlessly cool we could lose everything. Not just a student, an upperclassman. Coco Adele. And, for those of you who like crosshairs, boy have I got news for you. Crosshairs confirmed for Cobalt. Which means that Coco and Velvet will be in a relationship in the game. Next up, if you remember the last panel, General Madness, it's a friend of mine, was working on a game called Sassy. It was making it an independent game, while also allowing us to use his characters in Cobalt. While the Sassy game is kind of hiatus, we're still working on bringing Sassy into the game, and we've got a bunch of Amico sprites that he's let and owned to us for the purposes of the game. And I do mean a lot of sprites. The Isabella one was about 500 megabytes worth of files. But anyway, on the left is Sayaban, middle, Artemis, Next to Artemis is Sage, and on the very right is Isabella. If you're asking whether you can romance them, the answer is yes, but in the case of Isabella and Artemis, you have to ship them together before you can romance them. It's kind of like a matchmaking route. You have to... How do I explain this? You'll be like... Before you can... Rain...
That makes sense. Gotta get them together before you can get to them.
Yes, that. Thank you. Well, also coming soon would be Team Horace. Horace? Is that... I never figured out how to pronounce that. These are also OC editions, and they'll be... And some of the characters you'll be meeting are Eridus, which is a lovely young girl on the left, and Slate 8, who is an OC creation of another friend of mine. And, like with the others, you'll be able to romance them too. And now we come to the part which D-Man will definitely be enjoying. With the part where we talk about his OC, Horatio Sopla. We don't have a sprite or anything for him at the moment, but for those who have read his work, Ruby Heroes, you'll be pleased to know that he is featuring the game as the leader of Team Horace. And there is a polyroute option for him and Cinder, so he'll still be able to romance Cinder. Yay! And this one I just wanted to show off because, yes, Hathaway is still in the game. Ark's still putting him in the game. Okay, now I'm going to let Rain take over so she can talk about her second OC creation, Nurse Bo.
Alright. So, yes, Beacon now has a nurse character. This is Nurse Bo. She's a very shy, bashful sort of character, very nervous, but she's trying her best. For her inspiration, it was originally going off of, this is like way back in probably volumes like 3, I'd say, where there is the sort of parallel of Oobleck and Port being sort of similar to Mario and Luigi. And kind of the inside joke was that, oh, Peach is not around because she's in a different castle. So I kind of ran with that. Like, it is really old referencing, but I kind of ran with it. And Nurse Bo is based on Boo. I think in one of the Paper Mario games there is a Boo called Bo. So I used similar coloring from her for Nurse Bo here. But yeah, so she is one of the newest additions to Beacon staff. Say hi, be nice to her.
And this is her Amico sprite. It took us a while to get here, but I think he did a pretty good job with this.
Yeah, I agree. I love how she turned out. She's a cute little cinnamon roll.
A cute cinnamon roll you can hopefully romance? Is that right?
I hope so.
Bo romance confirmed then. Second thing that Rain's added to us is, ta-da!
Yes, this. So, we are getting some new outfits for Cobalt and Blaze. So, eventually, they go on a fun shopping trip with Coco, that we saw earlier, and they're going to get some snazzy new looks to them. So, tried to modernize what they already had. So keeping the similar colors and everything, keeping general style that they were going for. So Cobalt here has, new hoodie jacket combo, and Blaze is wearing a more punk attire with a um, layered shirt, cool studded belt, and pleated skirt below. So I, for one, am actually pretty proud of these designs. I think that they will do the game some good.
So please, for those from the Cobalt server, no more denim jokes, please.
Oh, I don't know if those would be stopping anytime soon.
Son of a... And this is what Bunny Void has been working on. It's the last dorm of the we'll be adding into the game. It's the dorm of Ray Glasses. Her dorm was sufficiently unique enough to warrant this, I feel like. Although this has been slow coming because Bunny Void's kind of fallen off into a hiatus like I did. But hopefully you like what's been developing so far, and yes, that is a gun on the wall. It's a musket, or at least supposed to be a musket. She's very history buffy. And these are the last of the Kelium sprites. Some of the last work Kelium did for us for Cobalt. And with this, Nora and Ren will completed the Juniper sprite pack, and we also managed to get a sprite of Mina, who will be appearing in the 0.4 recode. Not the Kelion sprite, but the character. And for those of you who missed Kelion's work, most of it is going to be added to a new subsection of the menu called Kelion Sprite, where you'll be able to see all the work he's done for the game. All the sprite work he's done for the game. He just didn't want the sprites to gather dust, you know? Although, heads up, Rain Peach isn't on there because I'm waiting until we can get a classroom replacement background before adding those two sprites, the Glinda and Peach sprites, into this art gallery.
All right, that makes sense. So this is kind of related, and I think this would be a good time to address it. So in the Q&A, Heinz left a question asking, will there be an option to choose between old and new style sprites? I'm not sure if that's referring to the JPDE sprites or if that's referring to the Kelium sprites, but it does answer the Kelium section at least. As for the JPDE sprites, from what we have been discussing, we're trying to get our own sprites because those original sprites were commissioned by a different creator. So, like I said, we're trying to just make it our own game, our own presentation, rather than just using other assets from elsewhere. So, as of now, I don't think that there is plans for being able to switch, but that might change. But as of now, we're just trying to replace everything currently.
There aren't plans to do that, and while Minus has allowed us to use the APD assets as placeholders, we do need to replace everything. Last thing I want to do before we move on to a Q&A proper is announce the release date for the 0.3 recode. It will be coming out on July 23rd. Which also happens to be my birthday, so, you know, presents!
Hey, happy early birthday.
Thanks! What you can expect from 0.3 is the week 2 of classes and story, and you'll be continuing the weapons arc that I set up in week 1 of classes. You'll be able to go on a first date with Lilac Silver, and you'll be able to call Blaze on the scroll. It's relatively minor, but let's just say it has hidden benefits, if you know what I mean. Okay, that concludes the presentation part of the panel. We are now going to open things up to further questions and answers.
So if you have any questions, if you are on Discord, you can leave them in the panel Q&A channel. If you are watching on Twitch, you can leave them in the comments.
Crickets. Oh wait, there's one. Who's been the hardest character to write for? That's a kind of tough question. Because there are a lot of characters that have been hard to write for. But the most interesting to write for has been the OC creations, everyone else's creations, because it's kind of like a role-playing thing where we're jumping into writing as our characters and going back and forth trying to... It's a different experience than writing on your own when it's pretty much fan fiction, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I personally kind of struggle with that as well. Especially like if you try to put in, like you said, other people's creations, because it's not your own. You aren't in the characters' minds. So it's like you have to sort of do like an interrogation of some sort to try to figure out every little detail there is so that you can put together an accurate scene. And I find that as well with canon characters, because once again, they aren't a creation of mine. Like if I were to try to do something with like, I don't know, like with Weiss. Like Weiss isn't my character. I just have to go off of what I see and observe.
We try to make things easier for ourselves by interacting with the OC creators and getting their feedback on the characters and allowing them to write for us, which makes things easier, but then it's a back and forth between the writing team and the OC creators.
Yeah, and that's just a matter of the kind of work that you're doing. And it is good that you are communicating with the OC creators, me included.
Although most of the stuff from 0.2 and 0.3 was before you joined up, so whoops.
Nah, it's okay.
But at least each will be able to consult with you when it comes to Bo's intro.
Yes. So, whenever you guys are ready, we'll be getting into writing for Bo as well. Though, considering she is very shy, you might not see her right away.
It's going to take an injury to get to see her. Interestingly enough, there actually is one in 0.5. You go smashing through a wall. Are there any other questions?
Give a couple more minutes for people to write down what they want.
Another question from Twitch, Yabadoli. Are there going to be bad endings to this? That's a complicated question. There's going to be a canon ending where things more or less progress the same as they do in canon, like Volume 3 and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's referring to the overall plot, or if it's referring to like individual routes. Because yeah, with the plot, like yeah, it's still following volumes 1 through 3 for the most part, but for the routes, like whether or not you can fail at getting make somebody upset rather than forming a bond with them.
Well, the drawing of romance young Raven is generally a bad idea.
And yeah, I suppose that's true with the compatibility that you talked about before, where you can't have certain pairings together. You know, Winter and Weiss, obviously. So I guess that would count as a bad ending to a route, at least the start of a route, where you can't really make somebody happy if you're dating somebody associated with them.
Talking more about the fact that Yane's likely to punch you if you try to
That
romance a mum. Another question from Yabadoli. What's your favorite dynamic to write, like, between two characters? I'm kind of looking forward... This is kind of a cheaty answer, but... I'm kind of looking forward to the interactions between Lilac and Ray. Looking forward to writing how they talk to one another, because they have a shared history between the two of them in the Cobalt canon. What about you guys? Do you have an answer for that?
Oh gosh, I'm not a writer. I'm not sure.
But if we're talking about ships, I think you've got a good preference for Glenda and Peach.
Oh yeah, like I'm pretty open with shipping Peach with people. Though yes, Glinda is a personal favorite of mine. We got a question, whose design was the hardest to nail down? If that's a question for me, I can only really speak on the characters that I have designed. So obviously, like OCs from other people here, like I didn't design them. So I'd have to say, um, look back here. because I've also got to remember what I've done. Actually, I'd have to say Evelyn, back when we were trying to translate Little Red's character. So that, like Ark said in the video that he put up, that there is like a specific relationship between Evelyn's appearance and her hobby and colorblindness. So it was trying to put what was essentially a rainbow on a character. And of course, that just didn't work out. Like, I went through probably half a dozen iterations for Evelyn before Ark ended up making the decision that he would just create a new character. So, yeah, I guess that technically counts. So I'd say Evelyn is probably the hardest. But after that, when we did Adeline, that actually went by really smoothly. So I guess, silver lining at the end of all of this.
I'm gonna answer that too. More recently, it was a bit of a working out a spike for Bo was a bit complicated. Not immensely so, but the color of the
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. There is just a bit of, like, of course, there's always going to be some issues with translating a sketch into somebody else's style, but at the end, like, it wasn't too painful.
it's always issues with translating anything into anything.
Of course, yeah.
Like, look at the Ruby look at the show models and the sprites. Two different art styles.
Oh, yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, I don't work there, so I can't say what the communication is like. But yes, like just looking at the direct comparison between the turnarounds and the concept art versus what you actually get in the show. So there is a difference there. So this is just something that happens regardless. Like, unless you're doing everything yourself, there is going to be some little hiccups here and there.
I think that might be it in terms of questions.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up to the hour, so we'll give one more minute, let's say, and then we'll be closing things up.
Although, if you guys want to talk about your experiences writing on being a member of the CBLT team, it would help fill out the silence.
Yeah, even just making comments is fine. Oh no, Dino, I do have a question for you in the meantime.
Uh-oh.
What is your personal favorite pairing out of everybody involved in this? All the characters.
Can I cheat and say Cobalt and Blaze?
All right, aside from them, if you had to pick somebody else.
I don't know if Catarot's watching the stream, but teasing Nino and Urim has been pretty fun. Like, Ox said that Mina's got a strong preference for not light figures, and Urim fits that to a T. On the other hand, so does John, for that matter. But yeah, Mina and Orem would be my favorite pair other than Cobalt and Blaze.
All right. So I think that I'll be getting wrapped up here.
Oh, there's one more. There's one more question. Will there be any time management in the game, like trying to keep up grades in your social life, or will it be more focused on telling a story and enjoying the connections that the characters may make? And to answer that, I'm gonna have to say more focused on telling the story and enjoying the connections. It depends. You've got afternoons and evenings in the game to dedicate to your to Cobalt and Blaze's social life and romances, so while the mornings are dedicated to the days, other than that free time schedule, there's it's pretty much just focusing on telling a story and enjoying connections. But yeah, I think that's it for the day. Okay, thank you everyone thank you everyone who came to the panel today. Hope you'll all
Yeah.
be
Thank you, everybody.
hope you all be looking forward to 0.3 when it comes out later this month.
So will this be recorded and uploaded later?
Yeah, I'm planning to upload it to YouTube later on. Just need to get everything organized.
Okay. And which YouTube channel is that?
The Team Cobalt one. Should be relatively easy to find. It's got Blaze as the mascot.
All right. Think that just about does it. Thank you, everybody.
And we will see you in the next video. Bye bye.